Hello, our healthy friends and family and loved ones out there. Welcome to another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast. We're live on Facebook and Instagram, your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. I'm your host, Dr. Benjamin Alter.
I'm your co-host, Dr. Susanna Alter.
And in this podcast, we like to address and point out and become familiar and aware of all of the various obstacles to our health that might be lying in our path, and just understand how to navigate through them, around them, with grace and ease and confidence, knowing that we're taking care of ourselves and to the best of our ability. And one of the biggest things that is hidden so much of the time that we're going to talk about today is chronic infections. You know, we might be walking around in this world with a low-grade infection that is just wearing on us, tearing us down, and in the long run can be leading to various chronic ailments. So we wanted to talk about this huge, deep topic of chronic viral infections, what you need to know really to regardless of whether or not you're infected. And so we're going to dive into this conversation.
Yeah. Someone actually requested this topic, and when I thought about speaking on this topic, my mind went straight to one doctor that we've learned a lot from. His name is Dr. Tent, excuse me. But you know, there's been a lot of talk about chronic viral infections in health and wellness communities because Anthony William, the medical medium, has brought forward this theory that so much of our chronic mystery illnesses or autoimmune illnesses stem from a chronic viral infection. And there are a lot of critics out there that say there is no research backing up these claims. And yeah, Anthony William, he doesn't that's not his source of information. But because Dr. Benjamin and I are interested in, using science and using our critical mind and critical thinking, we did a little more digging. And there is quite a bit of evidence supporting that chronic viral infections are linked with, some of these harder to treat neurological and autoimmune illnesses and cancers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the really difficult part when, looking at things and approaching things from an evidence-based medicine perspective, a scientific perspective, is that like so many other things that we struggle with regard to our health as we live our life, these are chronic, issues over the course of decades. We're not talking about a year or two that we can follow and see, okay, this is what happened and this is the effect of what happened, and we can address what happens. But with a lot of things like chronic infections, we can be infected. So many people harbor similar viral strains, and not everyone gets sick with an autoimmune illness. So that's kind of the critical perspective where critics say, well, for instance, Epstein-Barr virus, so many people get mono, so many people get, that acute Epstein-Barr infection, but lymphoma, which is directly also correlated with Epstein-Barr virus, not everyone who gets mono gets lymphoma. So Epstein-Barr can't really be the cause of lymphoma. Well, that's not exactly true. It is a big part of the cause of lymphoma, as well as various autoimmune conditions. And of course, Epstein-Barr virus, herpes simplex virus 4 is just one example of a viral infection. And maybe we could start by giving an overview of some of the viruses that are kind of at the root cause of a lot of the illnesses and issues that we're talking about today.
Sure. Yeah, well, a lot of them are in the herpes family. There's HSV1 and HSV2, which are most well known for their kind of acute reactivations. The symptoms that come up are cold sores or genital genital sores, and people don't think that much beyond those kind of acute outbreaks. But there is research showing that HSV1 is actually it can have devastating effects in the neurological system, even deeper than, just these outbreaks.
Mm-hmm. So there's, I think there are 8 or 9 scientifically verified strains of herpes family viruses. Anthony William talks about like 16 or 24 or 30 or something. And the fact of the matter, there are enormous amounts of viruses all throughout our environment, our ecosystem. We talk about the microbiome a lot, which is obviously mainly it's bacteria, and we coexist with these microbes, these bacteria, and we also coexist with viruses. And there's the virome, and this viral ecosystem that we're coexisting with. And certainly there are pathogenic viruses, but it's important to know that it is kind of it can be, and optimally is, a harmonious relationship between viruses, bacteria, and ourselves. And, if we just look into the world, there are far exponentially more viruses than there are bacteria. And there are exponentially more bacteria than there are humans, or any other organisms. So, here we are in these physical bodies, and we're interconnected and interrelated with all of these microorganisms and other macroorganisms beyond us. So we like to just look at things from a big picture and how we're relating, and kind of what our connection is, and how we're kind of interrelating with all of these things that can make us sick. They don't always make us sick, but they can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So should we talk more about the viruses now, or basically what some of the major risk factors are?
Well, just to throw out some other viruses that can play a role, there's the herpes family virus, which, like I said, we know many, but probably not all of them. There's also the parvovirus, and the rubella and rubeola, and like these kind of childhood viral infections that a lot of people are vaccinated against. And there's many more that we're exposed to on an ongoing basis that have various, that express various symptoms. Some of the time it's just like fatigue, and we're like, oh, I'm just tired today. Well, it might be a viral infection that's leading you to be tired. Or, oh, I've got a tickle in my throat. Well, that's probably a viral infection too. And while we're not putting a name and label on it and treating it like a virus, these kind of things are always playing some role in our experience of health. And, so as we're going to get into, when it comes to what to really do and how to combat this and meet this potential obstacle to your health, it really comes down to the resilience of your immunity. Of course, we can do all of that fighting and antiviral herbs and pharmaceuticals and whatever it may be, but if your immune system is suppressed, you don't stand a chance with regard to the ubiquitous amount of viruses in our environment. And so,
yeah. And it just occurred to me, I think it's so interesting how in the medical community, it is well accepted that HPV is a known risk factor for cervical cancer. And
that's a virus.
And HPV is a virus. And even, there is this understanding that if a young woman becomes infected with HPV, just watch and wait. Probably because she's young and vital and she has a strong immune system, she will be able to clear it. But as the age of the woman increases, the watching and waiting lessens and lessens, and the more regular screenings are needed. And if a woman is over a certain age, then they just go ahead and they treat right away. It's understood that, okay, as the immune system weakens as we get older in life, we need to take like more heavy measures to treat this illness. However, when it comes to other viruses, like EBV, mono, herpes simplex, there's not that same understanding. It's just, oh, okay,
It's just a
people get
virus.
infected, they get the acute,
Yeah.
the acute reaction, and then it goes dormant, and then that's it.
Yeah.
But really, it does, all viruses do kind of act in that same way. They could develop and wreak enough havoc to actually develop into something like how HPV can develop into cervical cancer.
Yeah, I think every virus does have its own unique flavor in terms of the symptoms it presents with acutely, kind of where it hides out and how it hides out, and how it can be the triggers, so to speak, that can reactivate a virus to expose you and subject you to the chronic symptoms. The unique thing about herpes virus, which is the herpes virus family, I should say, which is very well understood in the medical community, is that the virus is acutely contracted and then it goes dormant in the nervous system. And every virus, like I said, kind of goes dormant or hides out in the body in its own unique way. Some of them hide out in the the lymphatic system, the liver, the wall of the gastrointestinal tract, wherever it might be. These viruses have their own environment, I like to think, that it's really optimal for them to stay secure, kind of dormant, hide out, and they're really just waiting for a time to reactivate and proliferate throughout the body. And what that really means is they're waiting for a time that your immune system is suppressed, that you're under stress, that you get a divorce, that you get pregnant and have a baby, whatever it may be, that knocks down your immune system for just long enough for that dormant, hiding out viral infection virus to proliferate and once again present with a different subset, usually of chronic symptoms, as is the case with HSV 1 and 2, herpes 1 and 2, with like cold sores and genital herpes. That classic chronic reactivation is similar to the acute, but it's important to know that actually HSV 1 and 2 can present with a myriad of different other symptoms besides the classic cold sores and genital outbreaks. So, yeah, I think it's just really fascinating that, if you think about any life form in the universe, life is like, it's all about evolving and spreading and proliferating and expressing oneself. And the same is true when it comes to all bacteria, all fungi, all parasites, all viruses. We all have the same mission, so to speak, to just proliferate. So it's not the virus's fault for proliferating in your body, and it's not your fault for allowing it to, but it's just the laws of human nature. Viruses proliferate, and so do human beings. And we want to just make sure that that each individual, ourselves, we are proliferating, authentically and healthfully in this world, which really means, when it comes down to physiology, it really means having a resilient, top-notch immune system, especially, as we always say, especially in our world as we know it today, which is totally crazily inundated with stressors from the news, the Instagram, the Facebook feed. We are inundated with stress, barbershop, fragrances, and the preservatives and additives and things, and chemical fertilizers and pesticides and gasoline, and on and on and on.
Yeah. And I also want to speak to, like, although I think that there also is a varying degree of the kind of what's the word I'm looking for? The strength, the kind of
virulence.
The virulence of these.
The virulence is, the scientific term for the strength of an organism.
Yes, there's a varying degree to the virulence of different viruses. If we do have a strong enough immune system, we should be able to really keep our heads above water. I think it's also interesting, in addition to the fact that our world is becoming more and more toxic, I think also humans are encountering more ways where they're actually being exposed to these viruses. When you look back into the history of actually, this is a whole different topic, but there's, just fascinating evidence on the history of the development of the polio vaccine and how in the development of that vaccine, they used monkey kidneys. And these monkeys were actually infected with the virus called the polyvirus, which is also known as SV40. And they've linked this virus now to several different cancers: brain cancer, lung cancer, bone cancer. And you see in this population that was like the first kind of generation to get the polio virus, there is an increase in cancer. And yes, it can be linked to, toxic exposures and lifestyle, smoking, diet.
Yes, and I think it's all of the above. The lifestyle factors that we focus on are the means to support a healthy, resilient immune system. And we not all of us are exposed to this, monkey virus, the SV40 virus, the polyvirus that's really directly linked with brain cancer. But we're all exposed to different viruses that could be just as easily and directly linked with MS, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, Lou Gehrig's disease, all these sort of neurodegenerative diseases and autoimmune diseases. And, those of us who really take our the responsibility and do our diligence in enhancing our immune system, living the most healthy and detoxifying life, we do all right. We've got these viruses in our body. Sometimes they knock us down and they might give us symptoms as like a barometer to keep us on track, but we do all right. I want to kind of pause and maybe talk about some of the things we already listed, a number of them in our rambling, but some of the things specifically that can knock down the immune system, specifically in a way that can allow viral infections to proliferate. Because I personally, we could theoretically design a bubble and live in this bubble and walk around in this bubble and like stick our hands out and like, touch people through our bubble and interact with the world through a bubble. But I don't think actually we would be very healthy, because once again, we rely on that dynamic, that relationship dynamic with our natural world, which includes bacteria, fungi, parasites, viruses. We're all one and interrelated with all of it. So we're not going to live in a bubble in maintaining a resilient immune system by avoiding some of the things and experiences like you've got a list here.
Mm-hmm. Overuse of antibiotics, so that's like long-term use.
Yeah.
Blood transfusions,
of course.
Vaccinations, immunizations, ibuprofen, long-term use, operations, radiation, it's a big one, poisoned air, water, and food, it's a big one, which is also linked with toxic environment, cosmetics, toxic family members, work environments, prolonged stress, and fear.
Yeah, so that kind of covers like everything that could potentially downregulate your immune system. Once again, just enough to allow a viral infection that's dormant in your liver, in your nervous system, any other part of your body. We all have them. I guarantee, I'm doing this liver cleanse, and I guarantee that there are some viruses hanging out in the liver. Some of them might be like getting out. I don't know. I don't really care. What I do care about is that I'm maintaining an optimal immune system by avoiding some of these things to the best of our ability, right? That's part of life.
And yeah, it gets harder and harder each year to avoid these things.
Because nowadays, I think there are something like 95,000 chemicals in our environment, specifically in the United States, that are totally unregulated. So these chemicals probably not all 95,000 of them are going to directly cause health issues or directly suppress your immune system or feed cancer growth or anything like that. But out of the 95,000, I'm sure there are more than a few that will dramatically do those things. So we just, we got to stay not, once again, not in the bubble, but
yeah.
so maybe shifting gears to wrap things up, but talking about immune stimulating foods, lifestyle, kind of these things that, once again, it's what we're preaching, how we live in day in, day out. There, we're on this cleanse now, but what's more important than any cleanse is your detoxifying lifestyle. Who cares about the 10 days, the 15 days, the 9 days, whatever it is?
We could also call it an immune boosting lifestyle.
Same thing.
Same thing. Yeah.
So what does it look like, Susanna?
Well, let's start off with some of the basics. Let's start off with water. The city water in most places now is just so contaminated with many things we do not want in our body.
And even things that the city is intentionally putting in, like chlorine and fluoride, those kind of things, totally wreak havoc on normal physiologic function. And we don't have time to go into all of the nitty gritty of how, these quote unquote healthy kind of chemicals that are in the water supply actually do not promote health. But chlorine and fluorine should not be in your water supply. Neither should, pharmaceuticals and
bacteria that shouldn't be there, and all the stuff that's in the water that we really shouldn't be drinking. So getting filtered, spring water is the best. Spring water, if you are close to spring, yes, spring water is great. Filtered water is a good next step. If you can't afford a filter on your faucet,
I don't want to go on.
Okay, we won't go into the details. Sorry, I just get excited.
So water, super important. You guys know how to do that. Air. Gosh, once again, we're not going to dive into all these things, but we can just
air filters inside.
Food is where we have the greatest amount of control and leverage in shifting our potential as human beings. And that is where we focus a lot of our time, energy, and passion into preparing delicious, nourishing, detoxifying meals. Some foods to really focus on are cruciferous vegetables. We know that cruciferous vegetables amplify our immune system, amplify our detoxification pathways.
Leafy greens.
All the colors of the rainbow. Fruit is fruit is the source of all the multivitamins you could ever want or need. Beans. It just beans the health of your microbiome.
Really increasing the fiber to help with elimination of toxins through your digestive system.
Because just to kind of tie things back, because I don't think we outright said it, toxins that are in our environment or are potentially in our bodies do suppress the immune system and feed viruses. We don't want to suppress the immune system or feed viruses. We want to bolster the immune system and starve viruses. So keeping away from things that could feed viruses, like
toxic
foods and dairy and eggs, meat, dairy and eggs, that's the controversy. But certainly dairy and eggs, I think we can agree that dairy and eggs can feed viruses.
GMO foods.
Absolutely. Anything that is not intended for human consumption that humans are potentially consuming could feed viruses. Plain and simple. As well as the reason being, there's nothing inherently wrong with corn, soy, or canola. The reason is the GMO nature, the heavily contaminated nature of these foods, which really just has the human body, the human physiology confused. Now, we can't really metabolize, process, and deal with corn because of this phenomenon known as biomimicry. Corn is laden with glyphosate so much of the time that we bring corn into the body, and it's like corn glyphosate is like this, this kind of combo. And now if we eat corn without glyphosate, the body thinks, oh my gosh, this is a toxic thing, but it's just real food. There's no glyphosate, but still the body needs to be retrained to deal with natural foods like corn. Gluten is another protein that gets tied up in this mess all the time. Anyways, another tangent. So food,
keep it clean, keep it whole, keep it mostly plants.
Yes. Hydration, we talked about. Air, we talked about.
Well, radiation, stress.
I mean, that's where we have, food and our thoughts and our mindset is where we have the biggest leverage of, once again, for potential for change with regard to your trajectory in this human experience of health. Yeah, we're not going to go into how to deal with stress, but we
have a lot of other episodes on that.
We could do it, and we will do it in the future. But just acknowledging and being aware that this sometimes stressful human experience, it is sometimes stressful. Every human experience is sometimes stressful. Be aware that sometimes stressful experience can and does, and as a result allows viruses to proliferate. It's just kind of a common, pretty widely understood phenomenon. And understanding that concept conceptually is really the first step into kind of being in a place of understanding where we can actually make a change in our experience of stress. So
yeah, and then there are the factors that can lower immunity that aren't, they aren't everyday things. For example, like getting an immunization or an operation, things like that, getting like an MRI, a brain scan. These things are like, you need to look at the pros and cons of, are the benefits of getting this thing going to outweigh the level at which it will lower my immune system. Figure that out on an individual level with your own doctor. But radiation, actually is becoming a more frequent thing that we are all exposed to on a daily basis now. And so, just being conscious of.
And we just need to eat really great antioxidant foods to offset these kind of potential negative consequences. And the same is true when traveling. We talk about traveling quite a bit, and how, that's a time to really be on it. Not eat the airport food, not drink the one little serving glass of water on the airplane, but really take care of yourself when you're in a stressful environment such as travel. And then pharmaceutical medications, which have a side effect oftentimes of just interfering with normal physiologic function and also suppressing the immune system. There are classic immunosuppressant drugs, of course, which could allow viral, infections to proliferate. Things that disrupts our, normal relationship, interconnected environment with our microbial ecosystem. These kind of things do interfere with your immunity and allow viruses to, gain strength in our body.
Yeah, and so in addition to these kind of lifestyle factors and decisions that you can make throughout your life, there are some additional nutrients that you can take to increase immunity. And I don't know if we'll go into that today. Maybe we'll name the top 3.
Yeah, well, do we have top 3?
Well, my top 3,
okay.
Well, right now my number
what are
one,
yours?
Trace minerals in a humic acid form, and we like supplement called Restore. And the reason is because this supplement helps to balance out your microbiome, which is essential for good immunity, and it's also replacing key minerals that you need for immune function. So that's like, it hits so many different points.
So minerals via Restore. Second one for you?
Well, you could take a higher dose of zinc. Zinc is like the mineral for the immune system.
Yep.
Yeah.
Third one for Suze.
Well, lysine is so antiviral. So
Lysine is it's an amino acid that, it's in our food supply. We eat lysine, but maybe not enough. And lysine is in balance with arginine, another amino acid that could be, maybe high in too high of levels. Arginine is really high in meat and dairy and eggs. It's also high in chocolate and almonds and various things that have a elevated arginine content. So lysine. So for me, restore minerals, hydration, but we're talking about products and supplements. I think a mushroom extract, reishi and turkey tail are probably, or Tremides turkey tail. Yeah, people know turkey tail. So reishi and turkey tail are the best kind of immune boosting mushrooms. And you already said those things, so I'll add vitamin C.
Cool.
Yeah, those are kind of our immune boosting exogenous products and supplements. But
yeah,
food is the medicine.
Food
is the primary medicine. Hydration is the primary medicine. Movement is the primary medicine. Relating with our natural world is the primary medicine, and doing so in a way that naturally allows your stress level in your body to be in equilibrium, at peace.
Mm-hmm.
So that we kind of rambled, but it's okay. I was hoping that we started these episodes at like 20 to 25 minutes, and then it creeped up to 30, and now we're creeping past 30.
Ooh.
Anyway, so hopefully this was jam-packed with good stuff. Let us know with a comment, a like, a subscribe, a review. And what's really meaningful, I think, is if you are getting a lot out of this episode or any other, share it with a friend. I think that is an act of love and appreciation, that we can spread this sort of information. That is, if it resonates, if you think it might uplift and support someone in your life. So thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Peace and love.